Hello, everybody, and welcome to After the Game with Todd, Leary, Indiana basketball. Today, the Hoosiers took on the Auburn Tigers in the 2023 Holiday Hoopsgiving, and there was a lot of giving, but it was not from the team you'd like for it to be, as Auburn just puts a spanking on the Indiana. I mean, what Todd Leary, of course, joins us now. Todd, what would you call that? That's just a good old-fashioned ass whipping.
That is exactly what it is. I mean, we were outclassed in this game today.
Indiana gets off to their best start shooting-wise all season. They had 4 3-pointers, were the most they had in any game. They start the game hitting 4 straight 3-pointers, and everybody in this building, Hoosiers, Auburn fans alike, I guarantee you they thought, oh, hell, this is not something that they've been able to do. What's this going to be like? They jump out to a 12-point lead, but then there was a change. 3 starters come out, and they get back to where the game is tied when the starters come back in. But Indiana lost all the momentum at that moment, it seemed like, and they could never get it back.
Well, and if you watch the game on TV like I did, I mean, Lenny Dykes, one of the commentators described it perfectly and said those threes are almost fool's gold for Indiana because that's not Indiana's makeup. That's not how our bread is buttered, and that's not how this team is prepared to play. And it's just not. Like, unfortunately, as much as we would love for it to be a kind of a run and gun type team where a bunch of different guys can make 3-pointers, like, it's just this team's not built that way. And when they were up by that, you almost hope. We don't expect it to continue. I really didn't expect that pace of 3-point makes to continue, but I hoped it got Indiana off to such a good start that they could at least make it a tough fight back for Auburn. But it wasn't. I mean, it happened like in a snap of a finger. It was, I think, one TV timeout, that 12-point lead was gone. And so at that point, you're hanging on for dear life. And it looked on TV as if, it looked like, we say this a lot, but it looked like a JV team playing the varsity. Like, Indiana looked a step behind, and I think Auburn looked more athletic. They looked tougher. They looked meaner. They looked more mentally tough. And that, to me, that's a tough thing to say. Like, that's not how you want to be described as an Indiana team.
No, and there are so many. Usually, stats are like, they don't always tell everything. Right. There's a lot of stats here that tells a lot of stories. Number one, start with Auburn had 3 turnovers for the game, and they forced Indiana into. They had 8 in the first half.
It wasn't bad. It was only like 11, I think, for the game. Yeah, it was only 11 turnovers for the game, so it wasn't terrible. But I mean,
but Auburn not turning the ball over.
Here's the difference is you want to be able on offense to dictate how things are going to go. And when one team only has 3 turnovers for a game, you could pretty much say that team determined the pace of play and how things were going to go. Auburn played way too fast for a team to only make 3 turnovers. I mean, that's probably going to be a season low for them at the end of the year. And then Indiana only having 11 is not terrible, except for you didn't dictate at all, either on offense or defense, how the game was going to be played. Other than the first 5 minutes of the game when Indiana made the 3-pointers, other than that, Indiana didn't dictate anything that was going to happen throughout the game. Auburn did, and Indiana reacted to it. And you're never going to win a game against a quality team when you're reacting to what they're doing.
Well, plus, looking at numbers again, Indiana shoots 43% for the game. Not horrible, not great.
Yeah, not terrible.
But they got 56 shots off. Auburn takes 72. That's a lot more shots, especially when they are hitting 14 of 29 behind the arc for 48%.
And when your free throws are relatively the same, I mean, both teams shooting roughly the same amount of free throws, that shooting number can be off. One team can take a whole lot more shots if you go to the free throw line a lot more than them. But when those numbers are pretty equal, that's a tough thing to overcome. And Indiana just, after the run happened and the game got to tied, and then they were just down by, even 6 points at that point, you wish Indiana mentally could forget the fact they were up by 12, forget the fact you've given up that lead, and realize with 7 minutes to go in the first half, you're still only down by 4 points. Like you're still right there in the game. Like it's not what it ended up being at that point. And Indiana couldn't do it. Like they couldn't shut the valve off in the first half. And if they could have just gotten to halftime being down less than double digits, I think that they still had a chance to turn the second half around. But look, Indiana is what they are. And let's not, we're however many games into it now, 10 games into it now. Indiana is not a 3-point shooting team. And so you're pretty much pigeonholed into how you have to play the game, and you have to feed the post. You have to be efficient offensively. You're not going to be able to come back. I mean, just look what Indiana did to start the game. Making those 3-pointers, look what an advantage it gives you. Like it throws you out to a 12-point lead against a team like Auburn. But when that's not something you can rely on consistently, that you can't rely on it. And Indiana's not built that way. And they're not going to be able to, I said it in last week after the game, heading into this game. There are no teams in the Big Ten that play like Auburn. There are no teams that are full court press, 40 minutes a game, and are in your face, and they're just trying to speed you up. They're full court pressing not because they want to steal it. They're full court pressing because they want to get you out of your rhythm and what you do. And it worked. The only difference is in the first 5 minutes, Mbako made those shots that later on we didn't make. And for the last 35 minutes, we didn't make those shots. And so that's why the score ends up being, you give up 104 points because you let Auburn dictate everything. But the good news is, that's why I said in my description down there, don't even watch this game film, just move on, because this is not the type of team you've got to beat during the Big Ten season. This in our goal of winning the Big Ten, we're off to a 2-0 start. Let's not let this game derail some of the positive things we have going right now, we're not going to play teams like this. I mean, Michigan State is as close to a team that you're going to play like Auburn, where they're going to try to speed the game up and play fast and score in the first 7 seconds. Illinois, maybe a little bit, but we don't face this kind of team very often. So it's a gimmick game, I'll call it, because yes, I'm an Indiana fan. I hate to lose. The best description of me ever, and the one I take most pride in, is a coach described me as I hated to lose more than I like to win. And boy, I really feel that way. I hate losing. But this is a game, you throw it out the window. Who cares? We don't play this kind of team in the Big Ten. So move on.
No, and that'll be fine for Big Ten play. Just when they get around to NCAA tournament play, that's where you get a little concerned.
Face a team like this, and we expect this team to be more mature in March than what they are right now. Yeah, it'd be great to be able to. This is like if you played Arkansas, Alabama, Oklahoma, Auburn, teams like Kentucky, teams like this right now. You have this potential to lose 104-76. You're not going to lose to Northwestern 104-76. They're never going to be at this pace. It's never going to go this way. And we look at a team, I mean, they only made 14 threes. It isn't like they made 20. They didn't score 104 because they got lucky from the 3-point line. They scored 104 because they just out-physicaled the heck out of us and made us look like kids. I mean, it's a fact.
52 free throws shot in this game total.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
The game was called fairly. This is not one we're going to look back on and say, hey, the referees kind of dictated how things were going to go. No, Auburn dictated how things were going to go, and that's what you allowed to happen as an Indiana team, and this is the result you're going to get from that. I mean, if you go out, if Indiana, for example, goes out and they play, let's say maybe Iowa. Even if Iowa dictates the pace of play, which they want to play really fast, they're not going to full court press you the whole game. They're not going to force you out of your rhythm as much as a team like Auburn is. And this is the only way a team like Auburn can survive. They can't go beat, they're going to do that same thing if they play Kansas, but they're not going to beat Kansas like that because they're not going to Kansas is used to playing fast. Indiana's not. Indiana is built, I think, with one modus operandi, and that is get the ball across half court, run some kind of set, and then either have Malik or Khalil Ware have the ball in their hands in the last 15 seconds of the shot clock and let them create something and get something going. And that's the pace Indiana wants to play with. Auburn, Illinois, Oklahoma, those teams, they want to have scored already. So it's just it's this game is I hate that it's scheduled. It's nice that we play a national game like this, but I hate that it's scheduled because it's not really relevant as to how our season's going to go, I don't think.
No, let's hope not. Everyone got in and got to play. And it was good to see all those guys get that experience. But one of the things that has been good for Indiana has been the bench. And today it was Auburn. It ended up being 40-21, but it was, I think, even more of a disparity earlier on. They were getting points from every place. Their starters, their bench guys, everybody was hitting 3-point shots for them. It seemed
they dictated everything.
They were very efficient. I mean, we talked about the turnovers. Indiana had 12 for the game. That's not a lot, but Auburn with 3, but more importantly, they had 15 points off of those 12 turnovers. They were just very efficient today with everything. Did they end up out rebounding Indiana? They did by
barely.
4. So it wasn't. So a lot of things that were close, but you can see the things that made the difference in this game. And it was clear by watching it. Indiana is still not where they need to be, but a lot of positives. Gabe Cupps, first shot out of the game, a 3-point shot that he drains. I was like, whoo, there you go. And then Trey Galloway, and then your man Mbako, and I'm like, oh hell, they're on it now. And then he hit that next one, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But they didn't have another 3-point shot until 7 minutes to go in the second half.
Right, yeah, until late. And that's not the way this team is built. And hey, Jim, look, even though you can look at it, I guess I'm going to say it this way. Even though Auburn only made 14 threes, boy, it sure seemed like a lot. It seemed like they were just raining them on our head, like left and right. And, during the same time as the game was going on, I'm watching Purdue at the same time. Purdue's able to overcome and beat an Alabama team that made 19 threes today. Wow. And Indiana's not built to beat a team that's going to make that many threes. And even 14's too many. But a team like a team that makes 19 threes, Indiana's not going to win that game. Like, that's just a fact. And that's a realization that Indiana, like we have right now. This basketball team is not built to make shots, okay? And this team is one that is going to win by grinding it out. It didn't look like it in that game, but we're going to be able to out-physical some teams. We're going to be able to beat them on points in the paint. And the really tough part, Jim, is it's hard to make your points in the paint that dominant that you make up for a team that makes 14 3-pointers. Because even though Indiana made 6, we know only 4 of them were really relevant because those last 2 that Indiana made were, they were already down by 25-plus points. And so they're almost not really a factor in the game. Indiana, again, is only at 4 3-pointers. And those 4 3-pointers are made in the first 6 minutes of the game. And so in that middle, 20 minutes of the game, Indiana made 0 3-pointers. You're not going to win. In today's college basketball world, I know Mike Woodson, and I love Coach Woodson. I love our team. I'm not jumping off the train. But I'm telling you, we're not going to be able to win the Big Ten and get a great seed in the NCAA tournament if some shooting doesn't change. And he's always going to defend that perspective of things because he knows our team's not really good at it. And what's he going to do? Jump on the bandwagon of saying we're not good shooters? I mean, we're not great shooters right now. Doesn't mean we can't be, but right now we're not a good shooting basketball team.
And it comes down to a lot to guard play for this team, although
almost all of it, yeah.
But Auburn was able to do a good job on Khalil Ware today. He ended up with 13 points. He was 8 of 10 at the free throw line, but he was 2 of 8 from the field. They were able to really muscle on him a little bit, I think, and they certainly took him out of his game. And
this pace is not built for Khalil Ware in playing a game like this.
And then you had Malik Renew. When they came out in the second half, you could tell he made there was either a conscious decision or a decision that was made for him that he was going to take the ball to the rack. And he did it like 4 times in a row, and he scored 3 of those times. I think got fouled on the other one.
And those are some real positives you could take away. Like, you're able to play against a team that's supposed to be big and physical and all of that, like Auburn is, and you're able to efficiently be able to score the basketball and do some of those things that you want to do. I mean, this is probably the biggest game where it's going to be magnified that Xavier Johnson wasn't available. When he first got hurt, the very first game that popped into my brain was Auburn. This is the game you need Xavier Johnson. Xavier Johnson could play for Auburn. He's a guard exactly like their guards. He's a million miles an hour, and he's in your face, and he's physical. Sometimes it works to his advantage. Sometimes it doesn't. He gets called for fouls. But when you got a whole team full of guys that way, you don't stand out. Like, he doesn't look more aggressive than Trey Galloway guarding someone because everybody's doing it. And I think they kind of take the AAU route of saying, let's just foul as much as we possibly can and play. Foul's maybe not the right word. Play as aggressive as we can and make the officials call it, because they're going to call some of them, but eventually they're going to get to the point where it's so lopsided they can't call everything. And that's how AAU basketball is the way that it is, because officials, one, are not licensed officials for the most part, but two, they don't want to call 85 fouls in a game. And that's what a team like Auburn almost forces you to do. They swipe and grab and are body you and do everything full court for 40 minutes, and it just wears you down. And when you've got only one real true point guard in Gabe Cupps and you don't have Xavier Johnson available, this is the game where that gets exploited the most. The next game that pops into my head, the next one is Kansas, which is what's up next for Indiana. So that's another game. Xavier, maybe there's a whole week. Maybe he is available during that game, except for, Jim, what do you do in this circumstance if you're Coach Woodson? If Xavier is, let's say, 75, 80% available to play in that game, but then after that game, you've got a solid couple of weeks before the Big Ten starts and some opponents you don't need to play Xavier. Do you play him for just this one game? Like, would you?
Nope.
I wouldn't.
Nope. It's not worth. It's not. I mean, you want to win the game, but overall, it's not worth it. It's not a Big Ten game. You can make up. You're not. It's not going to cost you as much because it's not a bad loss. You're losing to the number 2 ranked team in the country. If he'd have been 75 to 80% today, and he'd played today and next week, that I can sort of understand. But if he's not healthy enough to play today, I wouldn't even play him next week. I don't care if he's 80 or 90% healthy. I'd give him those next couple of weeks off, because health is a major factor when it comes to the Big Ten and what teams have to deal with injuries and what don't. And if Indiana is able to get, a 90, 95% healthy Xavier Johnson come January, I'll sit here next week and lose another game 104-76 if we have to, in order to be totally healthy for that Big Ten run. And as a kid, he's going to want to play nationally televised game against the number 2 team in the country, against a guard who is, highly touted throughout the country as a great point guard. If I'm Xavier, I'm wanting to play. Like, I'm begging to play if he's healthy. But I honestly, as a fan, which is what we are right now in talking about this, I don't want him to play because I want a healthy Xavier when it comes to January. And I can deal with this 104-76 loss. I can deal with that mentally as a fan to know we're going to be good in January. And for all the people that are saying that Xavier wouldn't have made a difference today, yada, yada.
Yeah, they're wrong.
It's about the athleticism, especially on defense. Defense. I mean, these guys were not able. They could not keep up with Auburn's guards today.
Well, look, there are some Indiana fans, and I've been one of them over the years that have said, if you can rein Xavier in a little bit, slow him down just a little bit, he could be more effective in things. That he's got to be available in the last part of the game. He can't get early fouls. But let's be honest, in this scenario, Xavier plays exactly like the guards from Auburn do. And you need someone to match that. Like, in a game like this, that's why I said a week ago when this game was coming up, we don't play any other teams like Auburn. Yes, I would love to win. I do not ever like losing, but I can deal with. I can handle this because this game is. It's almost like a blip on the radar. Like we shouldn't be playing it anyway, but we are. So awesome! It's a cool nationally televised game, but it doesn't. We don't play teams like this, so I'm not really that worried about it. And when you've got Xavier in a game like this, is he going to make a 28-point difference? Well, I mean, you can say no, but the game doesn't get to this point if you have Xavier throughout this basketball game. Just his physicality would have changed the whole outcome of this game, and it wouldn't have been how many points he scored. It would have been just his physicality and taking care of the basketball and that stuff.
What about when going back to when Indiana had that 12-point lead, they were on the roll and everything was moving, and then the substitutions are made when you bring three guys off the floor, a couple of them that are hot, and like I said earlier, it just seems like that's when the momentum changed and they could never get it back. It was back and forth for a little bit, but it was gone.
It almost just kind of works against Coach Woodson in this scenario because of the timing of it. And hey, look, you take the good with the bad. You take the bad with the good. However it is you want to word that, you look at this and he comes from the NBA. And in the NBA, you have an 82-game schedule and you have a pretty set substitution pattern of how things are done. We're 3 years into Coach Woodson now, and he has a pretty set substitution pattern as to –
which is exactly what he said in the post-game presser.
Did he? Yeah. I mean, he sticks to it, which is what the NBA does. It doesn't really matter if LeBron started a game out and scored, 25 points in the first 7 minutes of the game. At that 7-minute mark, he's coming out. And that's kind of the way Coach Woodson does things. And we want – that's the way our team's kind of built. There are a lot of fans, when it doesn't work out, there are a lot of fans who jump on the side of, I hate the line substitutions where we have 5 bench players on the floor at the same time. And I'm not going to say I'm a huge fan of it either. I think if you can keep a guy like Xavier out of foul trouble, which one of the ways to keep him out of foul trouble is to take him off the floor. But if you can keep a guy like him out of foul trouble, Xavier's a guy to me that can play 36, 37, 38 minutes out of 40. But that's not the way the NBA is built. There are no players. I mean, you even watch Giannis and LeBron's and Steph Curry's. Like, those guys have set substitution patterns. They know when they're coming out. They know when they're going back in. That's why you see them come out and they put the hoods on and the towels on. And they know they have 20 solid minutes of sitting over there on the bench when they're going to get warm. And that's just what we live with Indiana. I'm good with it. I don't think it needs to change. I think the timing of Indiana making 4 3-pointers in the first 6 minutes of the game kind of exacerbated the substitutions a little bit more than what it will on a regular basis, because you took guys out that just had made shots and were doing all that, and you brought in guys who are not shot makers. Not guys who are going to come in and score tons of points right off the bat. So it looked worse, I think, than what the reality of that really is. And hey, Jim, I think we all, as Indiana, we're people who watch every single possession. We watch every minute of every game. And we knew that first 4 3-pointers that were made, we know that's not something we can rely on. That's not something you're going to expect to continue. And so the substitutions, to me, I expected the substitutions, and I think the team expects them. And they know when they're going to play and when they're going to come out. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
So going forward, not knowing if or when Xavier's going to return, like you mentioned, if you hold him out next week, or if he's healthy,
I would not expect him to
plays.
play next week. I don't think he'll play next week.
What is this team? So when they take on a team like Kansas next week, that's going to be every bit as difficult. I don't know where Auburn is right now, because they look pretty damn good today, but I don't know where to judge that up against UConn, who look good. And Kansas is also one of those teams that is solid all the way around. Auburn they just got beat by App State, but so they're going to have down days. But when they're on, lighting the 3-point lamp all day, but they were physical inside. And that is, man, that's a great combination if you got it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, you want that scenario if you can, but I mean, like I'm looking at it right now. Okay, so the App State game for Auburn, I'm pretty sure you probably don't know this, so I'm just going to ask you. They made 14 threes today. How many do you think they made against App State?
7.
I'm putting you on the spot here, and
I don't know. I'm guessing
for
7.
that purpose. They were 3 for 27 from the 3-point line. So when a team only makes 3 3-pointers, which is what Indiana makes,
live and die by the sword, baby.
You are in trouble when you're playing against another team that can make them. And in that game, App State only made 8 3-pointers, but they shot 50%. They're 8 for 16 from the 3-point line. So I mean, that tells you how important it is. I'll tell you this: like you're saying, you're not sure how Auburn is as a team nationally and all that. If Auburn makes 14 threes per game, they're going to win the vast majority of their games. The other team is going to have an exceptionally good shooting night in order to beat them because their defense is solid. They rebound the basketball, and when they make shots, they're very difficult to beat. Today they made shots. I don't think that's a lot to do with Indiana's defense. I don't think it's because we left them wide open. I think the pace of play was a little bit different for us than what we're used to. But when you look at this, I'm going to keep going back to it, Jim, because Indiana puts us in this position. But we're not a good shooting team. We're not a team that's going to make 14 threes in a game. And if we make 14 threes, I 100% expect us to win. And so that's where Auburn is right now. In this game, they're going to have games when they shoot the 3 for 27, and they're going to lose to an App State. But tonight they weren't that team. And when they see the ball go in early, you kind of hope it can continue. That's what we were hoping for with Indiana. They saw it go in early, but we know I give him a lot of credit because Lenny Dykes called it out when it happened. And he said it's almost fool's gold for Indiana because that's not how we're built. And he's right. That's not how we're built. We're built to have Coyle Ware and Malik Renew touch the ball as absolute much as possible. And I'm not saying we got away from that, but once you get into a team like Auburn, it's hard to win by just having your big guy score the ball.
Just to give you an update, remind you that Todd Leary, of course, coming to you live from Hoosier Hanks East, out off of College Mall Road there in Bloomington. How was the food today?
Oh, man, I haven't eaten it yet today. I thought I would wait till after I was done, but Benny had a full crowd in here last night and today, so place is doing great. Everyone needs to check it out and try it if you haven't. It's not just a pizza place. Everything they have on the menu is good.
Yes, it's awesome. I'm coming to you, of course, from here in Atlanta at try to give you a shot of there of Hotlanta. Everything they're taking it all down.
Didn't the early game? Didn't Mississippi State put up 100 in the early game too?
Oh, damn near in the first half. I'm walking down at halftime.
Both teams scored 100.
I wasn't paying a lot of attention because I was doing some stuff, and I was walking out, and it must have been a mother of a player right there in the stands yelling, "Don't look at that scoreboard, baby. Don't look at that scoreboard, baby. It's 0-0. And so I just happened to look up, and I leaned to a security guard and said, "Is that the score?" It was like 62-34. I'm like, how in the hell did they score 62 points in the first half? I didn't realize Mississippi State's got them a squad, man.
Yeah, they scored 106. The scores were almost identical. They scored 106-76, and Indiana was 104-76. But, yeah, it was so I'll just look it up. Yeah, Mississippi State made 13 threes today. The two teams that made 13 and 14 threes won in blowout wins today. I mean, as much as it pains me to say it, that's not the way our team's built, and we're not going to win.
But does it need to get? But it needs to be built closer to that. I'm not saying that you don't need the interior play. Of course you do. Those guys are awesome, like Malik Renew and Coyle Ware. But if you don't have some regularity of being able to match these teams, there's gonna be a lot of this. And why you said in Big Ten play, they're not going to see it a lot. But it's the postseason where Indiana is just getting back to making it, and now you want to see them go someplace in it. Right. And to do that, they're going to have to be able to beat a team like Auburn. Auburn's not even ranked.
Yeah,
will
I
be.
mean, our goal is not to make it to the NCAA tournament; it's to make it deeper into the NCAA tournament. And so, you're right; these are the kind of teams you've got to play. But I'm also like not insanely worried about that right now because our team will be different in March than what it is right now. We'll be better. We'll have played together more. But yeah, Jim, I mean, there's no two ways about it. You're not going to go through the NCAA tournament and win 6 games and get to the Final Four and win a national championship if you don't make more than 3 or 4 3-pointers in those games. You might win a game or 2, or maybe possibly even 3, I doubt, but you're not going to be able to make a huge run in the tournament if you don't have a team that can make shots. And that's where we are right now. We've got to get better at it. And Coach Woodson will always say, and he's right. If I was him, this is exactly what I would say: is he's not worried about that. He's focused on what we are good at and getting us to be better at that. And I understand that. And that's the position as a coach that you have to take. But as our players are, they've got to get better. They have got to become better shooters. They've got to be able to make some shots. Otherwise, the reality for us, the ceiling for us, is not deep into a tournament run. It's making the tournament. And that's where we stand right now. And we're a good enough team. We've got – the harder part is to find guys that are like Renew and Ware. Every team seems to have guys that make shots, except for us. I mean, I know there's others, but it just seems like we do this post-game show after every game, and
How
it seems
can
like
that
it's all we
be?
talk about.
It's been.
I don't know.
Let me tell you something. I looked up the other day. I said it on the show, or maybe I said it when you were on the show the other day.
No, you didn't.
Okay. So I'm looking through Indiana's all-time 3-point leaders in a season. No, for a career. You're on there. You're 11th, I think. 5 out of the top 11 are on that same damn team.
Right. And
5.
that's why I struggle to understand it. Because you think about our teams back then, and when you had guys that were coming off the bench that are career 40-plus 3-point percentage shooters, it doesn't, like, I don't understand it. That's the part of the game that comes naturally to me. That's the part of the game that came naturally to everyone I played with. And that's why I think I get frustrated and I struggle to understand this, and I struggle to accept. I mean, Coach Woodson was a good shooter. So I don't understand how he accepts it, but he does. He's the coach, and I'm saying it. If I was him, I would say exactly what he says, because you're not going to throw your players under the bus. If there's one thing he's an NBA guy, and he's not going to throw his players under the bus. And I commend him for that. I wouldn't either if I was him. That's our job. Hey, we're allowed to sit here and be armchair quarterbacks because we're not the ones that are responsible for it. We don't get paid $5 million a year for it. And we're not the ones responsible for making sure that they are that. We say it for exactly what it is. And we see the percentages. Yeah, you're getting they're shutting the lights out. This is what Auburn did to us.
I'm trying to lean out into the light a little bit.
About halfway through the first half, that's exactly what happened to the Hoosiers.
Exactly. Well, and it comes down not for me. It's not for me to judge. I'm not someone like you that is knowledgeable, has been there, but the recruiting has not been great on the guard side. He's not been able to land that guard or two.
So don't throw it into guard, because in today, I mean, one of our top three,
I guess, they don't have to be a guard to shoot well.
3-point shooters is our center, our 7'1" center. So, I mean, it's shooters. It's shooters in particular. Now, how many years? I mean, we're only in December, so I know I'll get made fun of for saying this already, but we're already looking forward to next year, because we know one of these guys coming in as a shooter for a fact, and that's what we knew about Mbako. The problem with Mbako isn't Mbako right now. The problem is we've got to get our offense in a position where we're driving, kicking him the ball, and all he's doing is shooting the ball. Because Mbako should be a guy that shoots 15 times in every game. Coach Woodson would smack me in the face for saying this, but Mbako should be a guy that shoots 12 to 15 shots a game, and 9 to 12 of them are 3-pointers. And that's the guard's responsibility to get him those open shots. And he's not put up the numbers right now where people are face guarding him and taking him away where we can't get him those open shots. And if he misses 9 of them in a row, I think Mbako is like the rest of us who were shooters at that point. That isn't going to bother us. We don't care. If I miss 9 in a row, I'm almost positive the next one's going in because I believed in the law of averages, and my percentage is not going to change that much. And over 10 or 20 shots, I'm going to shoot that 40%. And so, we've got guys coming in that we know are better shooters. I still think the guys that are there could become more capable shooters. They just got to do it. I mean, it comes down to hard work.
Got to give a shout out to Gabe Cupps. I've been talking about him on social media during the show that he's doing a great job defense and handling the ball, but he has to score. I said, I don't care. I said, he's still, I don't care if it's 5, 6, 8 points. He has to score. And people are like, no. As long as he doesn't, like, no, you have to score some points. And today he did exactly that. Not only did he do that, he had double digits for the first time in his Indiana career. And he did it by going 4 of 6 from the field, 2 of 3 behind the stripe, 1 of 2 at the free throw line. But finally, that's what they're going to have to get out of Gabe Cupps. It doesn't have to be 11 points every time, but he has to be a threat to be able to score, to be able to go to the hole, to be able to shoot a three-pointer, or they're not going to respect him defensively.
And look, this is – I don't think we started the year out planning this basketball team around Gabe Cupps having to be the point guard only. And I will say this always, teams prove it. The Auburn team we just played against proved this. Xavier Johnson being on this floor makes Gabe Cupps better, makes it easier for him to score. And when you've got a guy like Gabe Cupps, who is a capable scorer, and you've got a guy like Xavier Johnson, who's a capable scorer, but you take one of them out and he's not available to play, it makes it much more difficult on that one guy. Now, people can have got to understand this, and this is just a fact. This is not my opinion, or I'm not smarter than anyone else. This is just a fact. That point guard position has to have some productivity. It can't just fill a role and not make mistakes. You are 100% right, Jim, in saying that position, take the name away. That position has to score some points. And the best teams in the country seem to have point guards that not only score some points, score a lot of points. And Xavier coming back, whenever that may be, will help that position score some points. Xavier will be our leading scorer in a lot of our games, and that's not going to be because he's selfish or forces things. It's because that's his game, and that's what he's good at. And he's good at drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line and making teams guard him. And when he does that, the outside scoring only makes it easier for the inside guys. And usually teams are trying to, get him to throw the ball inside more. And we're the opposite of that. Like Indiana is totally the opposite of that right now. We need the outside guys to score more to make it easier on the inside guys. Because right now, all we try to do, this was the same knock we had on our basketball team last year with Trace, in that all we tried to do every single possession was throw the ball in the post. And when that's your goal, I mean, look at Purdue. Purdue, that's their number one goal every time down the court. The difference is when Purdue's really good, they've got other guys scoring and making shots. Edey's always going to get garbage junk stuff to come up with his points. He didn't score 1 point in the first 5 minutes of their game today and scored 35 in the game. Not here to talk about Purdue, but I'm saying like that type of basketball, it became easier on Edey to score. It became easier on the inside guys to score when the outside guys started making shots. And that's where this Indiana team is right now. They've got to have those outside guys finally step up and make shots, which will make it so much easier on Renew and Ware inside.
I'm Jim Coyle. I'm coming to you from the State Farm Arena here in Atlanta as Indiana just finished up losing to Auburn today. Todd is coming to you live from Hoosier Hanks East over off the College Avenue or the College Mall Road there in Bloomington. Make sure you stop by and tell Benny we said hello. But with Gabe playing forced into this role, kind of like Jalen Hood-Schifino was last year.
Yep, exactly.
Is when Xavier does come back, do you see them playing together and this having raised Gabe's game to that level to where having those guys on the floor at the same time will be a great benefit, or is he going to be the substitute for Xavier?
I think he'll be. I think we'll definitely see them on the floor together. I don't think the starting lineup will change in that regard. I don't think we'll start out with those two guys, but I think we'll see those guys on the floor. And when you've got games like maybe where Galloway is not scoring or not slashing or not getting to the basket, you'll have guys that come in that have that capability. And look, he's made shots throughout his career. Gabe Cupps is a capable shooter. Xavier is a capable shooter. Xavier's, can't believe I'm saying this because 2 years ago I would have told you there's no way that's a fact, but Xavier is one of our top 3 3-point shooters for sure. Probably an argument he might be our best. And to lose that guy, I mean, we've lost the guy who is, one, has a chance to be our leading scorer in every game, has the ball in his hands most of the time, dictates our pace of play, gets the ball where it needs to go, can drive and penetrate. We're not playing with that guy right now. He's going to make it easier on everyone when he comes back, not just Gabe Cupps. He's going to make it easier on Galloway and Mbako and Renew and Ware and all the guys that come in and get to play with him. He's going to make the game different and easier for them. And so, yeah, he's a major factor. Last year's Indiana basketball team became really good. They learned how to play without him, but would have been a much better team. Jalen Hood-Schifino would have had a better Indiana one-year career had Xavier been available all year long. And that's what he'll bring this team. This is good for, yeah, you're right. It's good for Gabe, but let's just hope we don't have to deal with it once he's able to come back in January. Let's just hope we don't have to deal with it anymore.
And I'm not knocking on Trey Galloway, but looking at today, he took 0 3-point shots. I don't think you can play a game like this when your number 2 guard is not attempting a shot from outside.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would argue right now with the fact of Trey's confidence shooting the basketball is probably at the bottom level it's ever been. I mean, he's struggled to shoot the ball recently, and
did you ever have to go through that? And
I mean, honestly, I've said this all along. Even when Trey was making shots early in the season, Trey is not mentally a shooter. Is he capable of shooting? Yes. Has his whole career been built around him shooting the basketball? No. And you mentioned it earlier. You go back to the teams I played on: Pat Graham, Brian Evans, Greg Graham, Calbert Chaney, me, Damon Bailey. I've left him out till the end. Like, all of us were shooters. If we missed 8 in a row, none of us cared. It didn't affect us in the slightest. If Trey misses 8 in a row, I think it gets in his head. I think it affects how that 9th one's going to come out of his hand. And for a true shooter, it doesn't. Honestly, it works the opposite. If I missed 8 in a row, I almost guarantee you I'm going to make the next one. Percentages just even out.
This is one of the was it Minnesota? I call it the Minnesota syndrome. So this is a Minnesota syndrome. You've got it up on your thing. Don't even watch the game.
Don't even watch the film.
Move on.
First of all, well, it's like I said it last week and I say it again today. We don't play any more teams like this. Like, even Kansas is not like this. They're not. They might full court press you, but it's going to be a one-man full court press, just making you work to get the ball up the floor. It's not going to be everybody guarding their man all the way down the court. So we don't play any more teams like this. So I wouldn't watch the film. I know they will. I'm sort of being facetious in saying that, but I'm also kind of not. Like, as a fan, put it out of your brain. We don't play any more teams like this.
What do they have to do against Kansas that they weren't able to do today, besides the obvious and some of the things we've already talked about?
Control the pace of play, control the way things are done, make some more outside shots. We all agreed it wasn't Indiana's character to make 4 in the first 6 minutes. Okay. I don't need them to make 4 in the first 6 minutes. If they can make 3 in the first half and 3 in the second half, I'm totally, that is sufficient for where this team is right now. I don't know that we can beat Kansas if that's the case. I think we've got to be more in the 8, 9, 10 make range from 3 in order to beat a team like Kansas. But I will say this, Jim, Kansas is not a very good shooting basketball team either. Their best 3-point shooter is 7 feet tall.
And he's not I don't think he might not be available for the Indiana game.
Yeah, I don't know whether that stuff's true. I never know whether I'm reading fake stuff or not. Like I read something about
there was
but
5 games that were questionable for Indiana today, and Malik Renew, Khalil Ware, I can go through the list. I think all 5 of them played.
Yeah, I never know whether that stuff's real or not real. Whatever. You prepare for him to be there. Indiana's not going to practice any different. They're going to act like he's going to be there. But my point in that is definitely from a percentage standpoint, he's their best 3-point shooter, but he probably is their best 3-point shooter. They're not a team that's built around making tons of shots. They just get the game going at their pace. If Indiana plays, if this is a game in the 60s, Indiana has a really, really good chance of winning if it's a game in the 60s. If it's in the high 70s, there's a much better chance of Kansas winning than us.
I mentioned earlier that it helping Gabe Cupps with Xavier being out right now later in the season. And is this a blessing in disguise? Xavier missing this time so Gabe can get better now so they can use him now instead of next year. I mean, they need him in this Big Ten season to make up some deficiencies they currently have out there.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, you're never going to wish this on anyone or on a team or in general, but it's something you deal with. Unfortunately for this Indiana team, this is the second year in a row they've dealt with it with the same player. But I mean, every team deals with injuries, it seems like, and this team right now, will it be beneficial for Gabe in January? I think so. I mean, in the Big Ten season, I think it will. But that's also kind of how I have to look at it. If you're going to, look at the glass half full, I think that's how we have to look. We're forced to look at it that way. We don't really have a choice. I wouldn't want him to bench Xavier to be able to let Gabe get experience and be on the floor more. But that's the reality of it right now. And you certainly would hope that all of this experience would be beneficial for Gabe and the whole team, playing without Xavier come Big Ten season, full-time Big Ten season.
This year's kind of a little similar to last year. Indiana had some big-time games early on against Arizona, against Kansas, and kind of similar results.
Same result.
They got pounded, got beat to death. But is this team is different? It's a different makeup. Do you see them able to come out of this with a more positive outcome and learning experience than last year's team with those?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, we're no different than we were 24 hours ago. I mean, we felt pretty confident about our team 24 hours ago. I will keep beating the horse, Jim, and I'll say we don't play teams like Auburn very often. There are not very many teams like Auburn. And through the SEC, like I know they're not ranked right now, but if they make 14 threes, they're a top 10 basketball team. Like they are very capable. One of their best players, that Johnny Broome guy, he wasn't that much of a factor in the game because the way they played in making those shots, which Jim, they're not used to making them like at that pace either. Like I said, 3 for
sometimes you get on a roll.
You do. And hey, confidence bleeds off onto other guys and guys that are not great shooters. If they make a couple of them, they're great for that game. It might not be great for the whole season, but they're great for that game. And if that Auburn team makes 14 3-pointers in every single game throughout the SEC they play, they're going to win the vast majority of their games, if not all of them.
If I'd have told you before the game that Johnny Broome was going to have 2 points, what chance would you have given Auburn of winning this game?
Not a lot. I would have said we would have dominated the game pretty substantially. He
scored 2 points. I can't believe that.
It's easy to say afterwards, but I mean, the only way I would have told you that we would get beat if he has 2 points is if they make a whole bunch of 3-pointers. And they did.
If they have 6 other guys that are in double figures, which they do.
they made a whole bunch of those 14 3-pointers all in a pretty short span of time. And that just made it. I mean, look, when you're down by 20, I'll just tell you this. We lost a few games where we lost by somewhere between 10 and 15. When you're down by 15, you don't feel like you're in. It's not a game. It's not close. Yes, us looking at it, watching it on TV, and you see the score, a lot more teams nowadays come back from bigger deficits because of the three-point line. But, Jim, when you're down 15, it's a million. Like, it takes a miracle comeback. And you don't feel – you can go on a 7-0 run and you're still, getting smoked. And so when you take a team like I played on with a bunch of guys who were comfortable with the ball and confident, even an 8-point lead, like we know we're not – you give me an 8-point lead with 10 minutes to go, we're not losing. Like we very seldom ever lost a game. If we were up by double digits in the second half, we didn't lose. And once this team was already down by 15, down 18 at halftime, the second half's a joke. Like, you're not winning that game. It takes a major fluke for a team to lose a game. Yeah,
I think they went on an 8-0 run even.
Yeah, they scored. They threw the ball. Malik scored several baskets in a row, right away to start the second half. And that's what I mean when you're already down that many. Now, if someone had come out and made 5 threes in a row, well, now hang on a second. Now you're back in it.
Yeah.
But we don't have that guy. We don't have that. We didn't do that.
Nope. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope Todd gets to eat all the good food that he wants.
I got a whole bag full of food right here next to me.
I bet, man. Tell Benny we said hello at Hank's, Hoosier Hank's East over off of College Mall Road. Make sure you stop by. We'll be out there again next week, Saturday. Indiana takes on Kansas. The Jayhawks come to Bloomington, ranked number 2 in the country, Indiana. Maybe they bounce back. This Auburn team just got beaten by App State. They came back to do what they did today. So There's bounce back games. What did you guys do do you remember what you did after the Minnesota game? I don't mean immediately. I meant the next game. Did you just destroy somebody?
I don't know, but I would bet we won.
I bet it did too.
And I'm being serious. We didn't watch that game, Phil. Actually, from the time we left that arena from the time the buzzer ended, Coach Knight didn't talk to us in the locker room. He didn't yell at us on the plane. He didn't talk to us on the bus ride. We never spoke. It's like that game didn't exist. It's like that game never happened because we never spoke of it again.
Well, I can't thank everybody enough for joining us, taking the time, especially Todd Leary, of course. Make sure you stop by Hoosier Hank's East and stop in and see Benny. And then, of course, we'll be out there next Saturday for Kansas to do it again. I'll be back on Monday with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Todd, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You too. You travel safe.
Tell everybody there we said hello, and we will. Until Monday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.